So let's start in our February 2022 meetup. Today I'm a bit alone since Doug is not feeling though well, so I'm taking over the presentation, the introduction, and some topics, but Doug is still here and will monitor the chat and chat with you guys if you have questions. So let's start in our 2022 meetup. So the topic of today is, and that's the reason why Mathias Huber was so kind to join, we'll speak about the vulnerability management regarding Log4j and Pwnkit, more less theoretical than we had already the IGEL security notification in our KB and inside of the IGEL community, but more how we dealt with the situation, because we were more or less concerned everywhere, more as every company in different pronunciation in different areas. And that's why we asked Mathias to join this time to speak about that topic.
Thanks for having me.
And we're happy to have you here. Then we have the upcoming events. For the moment, we are already planning the April meetup, but the title will be announced soon. For the moment, we have in March the next meetup together with our CEO, Jed Ayers, who will answer question and answer from the IGEL community, from Doug, from myself, and see what the year 2022 will bring in terms of strategy. So like every time, you see that the events are growing, that we have new topics, and if you miss a specific meetup or you have the feeling that you are not getting the notification for the event you're looking for, just sign up for the future events. You will get every notification that you need. On the next hand, since we introduced a few new features since mid of last year, beginning of last year, we have a lot of T's at the moment implemented in the IGEL community. So the Tech Tip Tuesday, so TTT, and the technology partner events. That's the reason why we have a specific website, which is igelcommunity.com, where we have videos especially for you. So it starts over the meetups, what we're doing today, the recordings of them, going over the general Tech Tip Tuesdays of 10 to 15 minutes tutorials that we're recording based on your feedback, based on your questions, but also all the webinars that tech partners are doing. And tech partners in our world are meant by technology partners who went through the IGEL Ready program. So just to name some, like the edgy endpoints, like Liquidware, Login BSI, ThinPrint, etc. They are also in the IGEL community, but not visible. Since we are not wanting to do some marketing or some advertisement and to just bomb you with publicity, you have to browse by your own for these channels. So please, if you are interested in a specific topic and specific partner, you have to go to channels, click the plus button, browse channels, and then you are able to choose by starting with TP minus. TP, like I said, is technology partner, and then you will get a list of all of them, or just click on one specific, like for any computing, and then you will be able to join their channel, and it's their playground. So they can do whatever they want, starting from ads, pushing out some documentations, new products. If you want to follow a specific topic, that's definitely the way to go. And last but not least, when we come back to the Tech Tip Tuesday videos, if you have the feeling that we are missing a specific topic or you need something specific, just feel free to reach out to us, to me personally, if you want, as a personal message, and I will be happy to cover that topic in a 10 to 15 minutes video. Just a short summary about the link that we're using, where we are, and what different kind of resources we have. Just a few seconds to you to make a screenshot or note down the URLs. And then we come to the last slide. If you have questions, since we have a lot of attendees and the chat is sometimes quite overcrowded with the chit chat, if you have a question, please don't put that into the chat. I will try to have an eye on it, but if you can, please put in the question and answer section at the bottom of your Zoom client, and then we should be able to answer them after Mathias' presentation. Now it's time for me to shut up and to hand over to Mathias. So let me stop sharing and giving Mathias a show. You're still muted.
Wait, I'm muted. It's the usual game. Thank you for having me, and I'm very impressed by how you have been growing the IGEL community with a lot of activities in the last year. It's very nice to see. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. It's nice to see you all interested in security. My name is Mathias Huber. I am the product security manager at IGEL. My job is to make our software products secure and to keep them secure, and also to communicate that to our customers and partners and so on. And Sebastian asked me whether I could do something about security, and he suggested maybe Log4j. And so I thought, let's take a little more general approach and talk about software vulnerabilities in general. But we'll get to Log4j as well. And at the end of a couple of slides that I have, I'll also be accepting questions. Okay, let's kick it off. So let me see. No. Where's my presentation? Where is my presentation?
I can sing something if you like. No, obviously you don't want that.
Okay.
Just reading through the chat. Just give me a shout as soon as you're ready.
Yeah, come on. I'll share my whole screen and then I'll make the presentation full screen. Do you see the presentation full screen?
No, for the moment we see your Outlook client, which is really interesting.
Oh no!
Your pay raise.
Oh no! No, that's the
wrong screen, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's a privacy.
It was just the invitation. No, it was just the invitation for the community.
So why didn't
we never seen something?
I wonder why it doesn't. Now it sees my PowerPoint window.
Yeah, the fun fact is that the show screen feature changed a little bit since a couple of weeks. That you have, so if you have too many windows, you have to click on show all windows to see.
That may have been the issue.
Example, the PowerPoint.
Is it better now, Sebastian?
Yes, it's perfect.
Oh, very good. Okay, here we go. And I thought, oh, cool. I have a lot of people here who are interested in security. I must tell them that the IGEL security team is hiring. We're looking for another product security manager because I have very many tasks and I could do with a teammate to work alongside me. So if you're interested, go look at the job ad and apply. And also we're looking for someone who has knowledge in both Java programming and security to help our Java developers build secure software, to do developer education, to fix security bugs in our application, etc. So if you're interested, have a look. I'll get to talk to you. Okay, vulnerability management. Well, it's a subdiscipline of security. That's something that you simply have to do if you are a software vendor, or actually if you are a project, an open source project maybe, and you have users. As soon as you have users who rely on your software, you will have to do vulnerability management. To give you a general overview, vulnerability management is a process with many steps. First, we'll have to find the vulnerabilities in our software. That's a very interesting part because often we do not know of the vulnerabilities that are hiding. As soon as we have found something, we need to create an audit trail. That's usually creating a ticket in our ticketing system. So it's documented that we found something, and then we can use the ticket to record all the steps that we take. For example, verifying the vulnerabilities. Are we really affected? And then we need to prioritize vulnerabilities. Is it something that's really urgent and important and we should fix it quick? Or is it not so bad and we can take our time? Then development has to fix the vulnerabilities. And then comes a step that I think most people don't think about when they ask us, oh, when can we have the fixed release? We have to make a build with the fixes. Okay, that's automated. But then we do need to have a quality assurance run, because it's no use to the customer if we fix one detail and it breaks the functionality of the product. So we always need a QA run, and that adds some delay. It can add up to a week, depending on how complex the fix is. And then we release it to the public and we communicate that there has been an issue and what to do to fix it. Okay, how do we find vulnerability? We have a bit of automation, and something we built on top of OpenVAS, which is a vulnerability scanner, open source. And it knows about all the known vulnerabilities. There's I hope you know CVE, that's the common vulnerability enumeration. Basically, these are just numbers for vulnerabilities. So we have the number and we can refer to it in a simple and effective way. And it gets the CVE lists via a web feed and knows which versions of software are affected. And then we can scan IGEL OS, for example. And then we can see which packages we should update. We also use dependency management. In a software product, you usually have a lot of libraries and some frameworks and so, and you need to make sure they all fit together and work together, but you also want to know whether they are outdated and whether they have security issues, whether they have CVEs against them. And we use, for example, OWASP dependency check for our Java projects. And in some new projects, we are also using Node, and there's the npm audit command. And then we know what we do have to update. Then we also use SAST, or static analysis. That is something when you don't run the code. When you just look at the code, a structured text SAST system, such as SonarQube or Coverity, is really a specialized search engine. It's a search engine for patterns of security issues in code. And that's a very good feedback for developers because it's automated, and a good SAST also has good documentation. So it points out an issue that it's found, and they can click on help, and they learn about why they should use a certain, let's say, cryptographic algorithm in a certain mode and not another. And then, of course, we all learn about security issues from mailing lists, from upstream. And upstream, we are, as a Linux distribution and as a Java development shop, we use a lot of open source software, and that comes from projects, and we use it. So they are upstream. It streams down to us, and then it streams down to the customers. So we subscribe to the upstream mailing lists. For example, there's Tomcat in UMS, and when there's something wrong with Tomcat, I learn about that from the mailing list. Or follow the advisory feeds from Debian and Ubuntu, because we use packages from Debian and Ubuntu in IGEL OS. Then general security media. Once a year, we have an external pen test. That's very good because it's very specific to our products. They tell us exactly what is wrong with the code we wrote. Sometimes when we have the time, we also do internal security assessments, but having someone external do it is very good because the they're not fatigued by seeing our products all day long. They bring a fresh view, so they find something interesting. Sometimes we get report from larger customers who have a security department of their own. And sometimes we also get reports from security researchers who examined our products and approached us confidentially and said, look, we found something. We would like to disclose it in 90 days. Here's the report. Please fix it. So that's finding the vulnerabilities. Then we need to verify and prioritize the findings. So I've already told you an audit trail is important, so let's create a ticket. And verifying vulnerabilities, sometimes if it's just a package that needs to be updated, we just check for the version, but the version is often not enough because the Linux distributions such as Debian and Ubuntu, and also we at IGEL, we also patch the packages. So really, it's a version number that would be affected, but someone has ported the fix to that version because the Linux distributions, they like to have some stability on the versions so that the version number keeps the same. But they just corrected the bit that had the vulnerability, and then they write about after the version number Ubuntu 10 or something, then it's the 10th patch that they have applied, and we need to check for that as well. And sometimes we're not sure whether we are affected in the context of our software, and we test it. For example, if there's a proof of concept exploit, we build that in our lab and run it, and then we'll see whether something happens, or sometimes someone from the community has built a scanner, maybe an Nmap script, then we actually test things as well. And then we need to prioritize the vulnerabilities. So if it's just a package that has a vulnerability and that's from upstream, there often already is a vulnerability score, a base score from upstream. And we use the CVSS rating system that's used also by NIST, for example, and used by many tools. And often we have the CVSS score, and that's between 0 and 10. 10 is the highest, that would be a critical vulnerability. 7 and 8 are high, and so on. But the base score is not that informative because we have to see how the component is used in IGEL software. Maybe it's in a feature or option of the software that we don't use, that we have deactivated in configuration. So that's why we have an IGEL score as well. And then we can decide how badly it affects IGEL OS. And we use the CVSS calculator by first. It helps you arrive at the score. And you just have to set some values. They have a really nice online training about how to do this. I think it takes 2 hours, and it's highly recommended. So for example, attack complexity is low, so it's something that's not very hard to do, and the privileges required. Sometimes you don't need any privileges at all. You know, for example, the exploit works over the network, and you don't have to authenticate. Low, you need to have an unprivileged user account on the system, and high, you need to be root. Yeah, then we calculate it, and then then I talk to product management and development. I say we need to fix this, and they say, okay, we have a release coming out in March, and we'll see if we can fit it in. And then there's always the question if we have enough resources to do the work necessary, and also in quality assurance. Sometimes we have to make a compromise, and sometimes if it's really important, we need to postpone another ticket. another nice to have feature, and we'll do the fix instead. And if the issue is critical, we stop everything and drop everything, and we do the fix first and then release it. Okay, so how do you fix these things? So sometimes it's really quite easy from a technical point of view. You just update the dependency. You just update the OpenSSH package. And that's what we do anyway for every new release, because there are always minor or medium issues found in packages, and we always have to update. So that's just a routine job in every release. Sometimes we have a configuration that has turned out to be vulnerable, for example, for cryptographic software. All the time, new attacks are discovered, and it turns out that an algorithm that you once thought was very strong is not so strong after all. Then we have to remove the algorithm from the configuration. And of course, the most effort is if it's code that we have written ourselves, then someone really has to go over the code and change it, understand what happens, change it to a more secure version, and then we have to retest if we're still vulnerable. Then we build a release candidate. So that's not a finalized release, but something that we think is almost ready for release, and we pass it to quality assurance. And they check if it still works as intended, or if the fix has created unwanted side effects. And if we still have some issues, we go back, make a correction, build a new release candidate, QA it, and then if everything's in order, we can release. I hope you all know what an IGEL security notice is, an ISN. It's an advisory, just like the other software companies have, or the Linux distributions, Debian security advisories, Ubuntu security notice. They live on the knowledge base of IGEL, and we publish these as soon as we can tell our customers a bit what they can do. So it makes sense to publish these if I can tell you. Just don't give people a terminal emulator, and then the risk will be lower. And sometimes I can also tell you when the fixed version will be available. Ideally, that is soon, but we try to communicate ahead of time so you know you're affected and what you can do in the meantime. And we also have a mailing list for these security announcements that has the advantage that you don't have to visit the knowledge base and look every day whether something's new. It just, you find it in your inbox. Yeah, and sometimes we make a regular release because the issue is not so severe. But if it's a critical vulnerability, we make a release out of the regular cycle and tell our customers to update to that. Okay, now comes the part you've been waiting for, and I already see some Log4j questions. We will talk about that later. Okay, so Log4Shell, actually the name the researchers gave this vulnerability. You see, I think since 10 years or so, the major vulnerabilities, they all have a name and a logo, which I put on the slide. The Log4j, I think most people who have programmed Java have met Log4j. It's a very popular Java logging library, and it's used in a lot of Java software. And so it happens that we also use it in UMS and ICG. And the issue was that an attacker could execute code from remote over the network. And that's pretty bad. Code execution is bad, and if you can do it over the network without even authenticating, that's extra bad. And why could that happen? Because Log4j supports a strange thing. It actually can, in a log, to add more information, to query an LDAP server and load a serialized Java object from that server and run the code. And that was rated critical. And here's a link to Wikipedia that explains some more. And I was like, what? A logging library? Isn't that just supposed to write logs? But it loads code from the network and runs it? And that is by design? Oh, I couldn't get my head around that. I still haven't found out why that feature was created. But really, let's not be so hard on the Log4j people, because as in many cases, it's just an open source project that a handful of people do in their spare time. But it's very popular, and so it's in half of the internet applications. And the same was maybe people who have been in IT for a while remember Heartbleed. That was a vulnerability in OpenSSL. And it was the same. It was just a couple of volunteers maintaining it, but everyone is using it. And for OpenSSL, they got funding from the Linux Foundation, so it can be better maintained. So let's not be too harsh on people who give us code for free, which they develop in their spare time. Okay. So Log4j shell, it could have been just a routine package update, but it had enormous media and social media attention. It was like an avalanche. I got so many mails with concern from concerned customers and everybody. That created a lot of communication work. And the annoying thing really was that while we knew about it early and had started fixing it, for more than a week, every day a new CVE came out and it says, no, the previous version, the update that we released, it doesn't remediate everything. You have to go to yet another version, and there's a new CVE and yet another version. So we were really chasing Log4Shell for over a week. And finally, we settled for 2.17.0, because at some point we have to make a cut, put it into a release, have that release QA'd, and get it out to our customers. And even now, I still have requests about Log4Shell, and I'll answer your questions as well. So people who like hacking videos, watching people type stuff on a Linux console, there's a YouTube link for you to see how Log4Shell can be actively exploited. We fixed it in UMS 6.09.120. And yes, Log4j 2.17.1 is the latest and not 2.17.0. But we're not affected in the context of UMS. We are not affected by the CVE against 2.17.0. So everything that affects UMS is fixed for so far. And then we also had a very old 1.2 version of Log4j in UMS, and we'll remove that. There'll be a new UMS release coming out, 6.10, and that'll come out by the end of March. And then we'll have removed the old Log4j1 version, and we'll also update to whatever is latest then. Okay. And John asked, do you publish an SBOM or behavior transparency manifest for your products? So you want to know what's inside, what the ingredients are. We have that for licensing reasons, there's a license info both in UMS and in IGEL OS, and it has in IGEL OS, I think it has 700 entries or so. But if you also want the exact version numbers and so, just request it from customer engineering. We have, of course, from our build systems, we have manifests, what's inside exactly. And if you are interested in it, we can give it to you by on demand. Okay, and then the next thing came along, Pwnkit, the play of words on PolicyKit, now called Pwnkit. There's something, if you are a non-privileged user and you want to run an application as root, then you get the little window which says, please enter root path or something, and that's handled by PolicyKit. Often this is used to become not just another user, but to become root after providing a password. And there has been a vulnerability that lets a non-privileged user become root without a password. But the exploit is not easy to configure and to run. And you need command execution and and you need to be able to place a file on the system. But IGEL OS was affected, as we use, like many Linux systems, PolicyKit for giving you, for example, access to the local setup. So how did it go? So Chris, our Linux security analyst, he learned of it early from the mailing lists he subscribes to. And on Monday morning in the security team meeting, he showed us the proof of concept exploit. He had to configure a couple of things and compile some things, and then it worked and he was root. So we published the ISN with mitigations, which is don't give people a terminal or a shell, and planned for the fix. Then we update the policy kit package, build a new version. Then we QA'd it because it's an important part of the system. If it doesn't work, you can't, for example, use setup or other components. And then we released IGEL OS 11.6, 250, and updated the ISN. So that went really well. So it was good just to see how good our vulnerability management process works. People have asked for recommendations. So stay up to date with security information. We have security.igel.com, which is really an alias for our knowledge base. It's the quick link to the security section, and there you'll find the ISNs. And stay up to date software-wise. I have often seen, especially for UMS, very old systems running at the customer. I mean, some customers have processes where they have to get the software version qualified, and that takes a while, and then they want to stay on it for a while. But really now that everything's on the internet and a lot of people, either researchers or criminals, are researching vulnerabilities all the time, there's just no way around software updates. You have to keep up with the times. And that's easiest if you subscribe to the security announcements mailing list. And you can do that on the IGEL homepage. The thing is, this is managed by our general mailing list system. So, you know, it's GDPR compliant and everything. When you initially subscribe, it subscribes you to all, but then you can use the unsubscribe link, and it will take you to a menu where you can unsubscribe from all the marketing stuff and just keep the security announcements. And that's really what I recommend. Subscribe to the mailing list. And if you have questions, your direct contact to me and my colleagues is security@igel.com. If you have questions about vulnerabilities, if you see an alarm in your security scanner, or if you have discovered a vulnerability yourself, drop us a mail and we'll pick it up and we'll be in touch. Now we have time for some Q&A. Sebastian has shared some questions in advance, but I can answer the most recent question from the questions menu as well. You stated earlier that it is used in ICG as well. ICG uses Log4j in only a handful of places. It's not used that much as in UMS. We had the old 1.2 version in it, but the vulnerability affects systems when the attacker can change the Log4j configuration file. And you can't do that over the network in ICG. You have to be on the system and you have to be root. So it's not affected. All the same, we'll clean it up. There'll be no more Log4j1 in the new releases at the end of this quarter. So, Sebastian, I've answered some of the questions that I had beforehand in my slides. I'm receiving a new CVA from my security audit tool. Yeah, or my security department does security scans and an alarm shows up. So basically, you go to the first thing that you should do is go to the knowledge base, and you use the search function and search for the CVE number. Because usually the ISNs have the CVEs. And if you don't find it and you still have doubts or questions after that, then you can contact support, open a support ticket, or send a mail directly to security@igel.com.
And I will just jump in here. If you have specific questions that are not covered by the ISN itself, or if you have the feeling that something is missing, please feel free to reach out to us in the IGEL community and asking if there is maybe something already in progress and preparation. Then we can definitely guide you a little bit. So if you have questions, also consider to ask in the IGEL OS or IGEL UMS or IGEL ICG channel. I will be happy to help.
Yes, let's not forget the IGEL community. Yes, and Sebastian will talk to me, and I can help you out then via Sebastian. Where can I subscribe to ISNs? Exactly. You subscribe on the igel.com homepage. At the bottom of the page, very bottom of the page, subscribe for updates. And what does the information look like? It looks just like the ISNs on the knowledge base, but it's in plain text because I know security people like plain text mails. But apart from that, it's the same. But the good thing is it automatically lands in your inbox and alerts you. Are you planning to have a security officer on duty for a 24/7-like approach? We have that for the systems we are running, but it's a service that we are renting from a service provider. And we're growing our security team. I like to remind you that we are hiring. And the more people we are, the more we can watch our products. But there's not someone on watch all the time for the products because it's just not feasible at the moment. Another question. What is your recommendation for making IGEL OS, IGEL Cloud Gateway, more secure? So for IGEL OS, we have a hardening guide that describes a lot of steps, because in the default factory setting, when you get IGEL OS on a hardware device or freshly installed, it's not designed to be maximum secure, but to help you get it up and running, help you register at UMS and so on. And then once you get it up and running, before you get into production, Apply the hardening guide. It has such things as don't give people access to a terminal. There's also virtual console switching with the hotkeys. That's something people forget about, but Linux people know you can get to a virtual console. You can disable that, and so on and so on. So that's really the go-to for IGEL OS hardening.
May I also ask, just maybe just one hint on that hand, because that's something that we're already getting from time to time in the IGEL community. If you start on your own an IGEL deployment and you're installing the UMS by your own, the IGEL OS by your own, that's absolutely great. But just be aware that also the SSH is enabled by default. Even if the access is pretty limited, it might be something which might also cause some trouble with your security audit. So even if it's activated by default, you can disable most of the relevant tools, daemons in a profile. And just because it was asked already before in a private chat, we still have a web browser, in that case, 2 web browsers in our IGEL OS. So if you do not feel that the browser is secure enough, you can still disable the feature on the system for customization features. Or if you do not want that such kind of browsers even start a malware or whatever synchronization, you can also disable that one or create a local proxy, whatever you like. So just in case, for more or less every security concern that you may have, we should also have a solution. So also there, just feel free to ask us if you can maybe help somewhere. That's it.
Right. And we should really also publish a hardening guide for UMS and ICG. But we'll do that when you join us, you know, when you apply, and we can hire you, and then we have more manpower, then we can do a lot of more security documentation. But for UMS, it has mostly to do with the security of the host OS. So apply the updates, use secure settings on the host OS. And inside UMS, make a good plan for the permissions of the UMS admins. Not everybody has to work as the super user. Help desk only needs maybe assigning profiles, rebooting, and secure shadowing. So give people minimal permissions, just what they need to do their job. And for ICG, it's also maintain a secure host OS. There's a tutorial by Sebastian that makes some suggestions what you can do to harden your ICG host OS. For example, you can switch your SSH to public key authentication, which is more secure than passwords, while you are not actively managing ICG from UMS, because that needs the password mechanism at present. We have on our roadmap to support public keys as well, because a lot of customers prefer that, but it's in the works. But while you only use that when you update your root certificate or when you update ICG, and the rest of the time you can just connect it to it using the SSH public key. And for anything that's on the internet, you watch the logs, so you know what's happening. Next remaining question. What are your thoughts? Is your vision on how the security topics will evolve in the UC world? Will we expect such a situation as Log4j regularly now? Yes, I expect, and we've had it in the recent years already. Do you remember Heartbleed in OpenSSL? That was in every system that was on the internet. Shellshock, that was all on all the Linux systems. So it will continue like this. And this is why we need to monitor the dependencies, subscribe to mailing lists, and also do security scanning and security testing ourselves. And there's a foundation started by the Linux Foundation. They work on securing the open source ecosystem. They give resources to such projects as OpenSSL. Did IGEL change something in their security analysis or internal processes since Log4j? I'm proud to say that we did not. Log4j has shown us that the processes we have, they work really well. And that's why we could deal with Log4j. So, thank you. if you're looking for a security job, remember, IGEL is hiring. And now I can stop sharing, and we'll have some more recent questions from the audience.
Right, so just let me ask a question there, Matthias. Is Peter Darren the question our company uses Tenable to scan for vulnerabilities? The question is already answered from what I recall, right?
Yeah, so you're good enough for the moment with Log4j 2.17.0, but Nessus will flag it. That will be gone at the end of March when we update. So don't change the jar files you see on your system yourself, and never delete them. I don't know, somewhere this tip came, you just delete Log4j or something. And people who know about application development say, but it's a dependency that's listed in some file, and if it's gone, there'll be an error and the application won't start anymore. So wait for the UMS update. And an OS 10 mitigation for Pwnkit. Okay, I'm very sorry, but the official answer from IGEL is upgrade to OS 11. Milan, deactivating unused features. This is the common security philosophy. However, disabling features in IGEL OS often leads to other problems. Are there any plans or recommendations around this?
To make it short, Matthias,
okay.
I can give you the background of that question, because I must say that it's a topic which is coming on a, I would say, more or less daily base, where the device is getting a profile assigned by an administrator, where on the system for customization features, someone disabled features because of security, space, etc. This device is then moved to a folder, everything is good, but for whatever reason, this device will get reset to factory defaults because you want to test something, or you have maybe a misbehavior, or you want to send the device back to IGEL for whatever reason. And then after the initial reboot, the device will show up an error because it will try to reinstall the missing features from a source which is not available because the device is not in the OS anymore. So I'm not sure if you are the right person to ask in that specific case, because that's yeah. Okay,
but we should keep that in the back of our heads.
Definitely. Yes. It's already in discussion with PM.
That will change in the future. That will change in the future.
If you speak about the specific products that will launch this year, you mean?
Yes.
Without telling something. Right. I agree.
Okay. So I hope we have made good use of our time.
Definitely. Definitely.
I hope it was worth your time.
Happy.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So it was really interesting. I got the feedback inside of the chat, but also in private chats in the Slack client. So people are amazed about that kind of information. So I'm pretty sure that if you would agree that we will have you soon with all the topics to cover, hopefully not such soon, but I'm pretty sure that
let's say in the second half of the year, maybe we can do an update. Then we'll have some news. And yeah, so apologies if you expected some live hacking. I'm not a hacker, I'm a security manager. We have someone on the team who is a good attacker and he tests our systems, but I'll have to ask him. I don't know whether he wants to go public. And if you enjoy hacking videos, go to the YouTube video of Log4j from a user called Ipsec. I think he works for Hack the Box. And he creates machines, and he also does demonstration videos of how to crack the boxes. And these are very, very instructional. You learn a lot about what Nmap flags to use, how to write scripts for exploits, and so on. And you learn a lot just about basic technology. So you learn a lot about how Linux works, for example, because to exploit the issues in the details, you have to understand the details, and it's very instructive. So IPSec on YouTube is my big recommendation.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mathias, for your time, and
thanks for having me.
For having joined me.
Okay.
It was a great time as always. Then I would say I wish you all a pleasant day, a pleasant afternoon, a pleasant evening, and I would say see you soon in the IGEL community. Bye-bye.
Bye.